there, Squirrel Army. For today, we are starting off our upgrade guides for the new commander decks from Wilds of Eldraine. This is for the Dimir Fae Domination deck. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the face commanders in this deck. I've already done so. So if you want more of a comprehensive breakdown of what these commanders do, which one I think is better, which one I think works best for the strategy that you're trying to enact, then you can go check out my video. Should be appearing in a little bar above my head, but it is a fairly recent video, so you can find it pretty easy.
Alright, so I'm checking out the deck list now. And if you guys do want to check out the deck list for yourself, it's not super critical to figuring it out and whatnot, but if you do, you can just Google search it up. You can find it literally anywhere and everywhere. But after having a bit of a look at this list, it's not too bad. I think maybe we want one or two more cheap ramp spells, maybe. Beyond that, I feel like we need a lot more consistent card draw and maybe a couple of other ways to buff our fairies to make them a little bit more threatening. That or have things that make us more fairy tokens, such that we can take over the game with a whole bunch of flyers and things like that. I'm glad that Reflections of Lichara's in the list here, because that's a really good one for the strategy. Yes, there are a few legends that you'll legend rule yourself on, but so what? There's also a whole bunch of non-legends in the deck, so you're going to be happy for it to be working on that front. So yeah, I'm going to add a bunch of more consistent card draw, cut a lot of the less consistent card draw cantrip style stuff that doesn't really do a whole lot for the deck, and see what I come up with.
You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing.
Alrighty, so I've finished the upgrade here. And as always, I will say, if you're not super interested in the explanations and whatnot, that sort of thing, go check out the deck list down there in the comments below. You can find it there and do what you will with it. For those people who are here to check it out, I will go through it as quickly as what we can. I'll start with what I took out. Down here, I was considering it. Ha 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 ha. But no, I wasn't actually, to be honest. It's not very good for this deck. It's not very good for many decks, honestly. There's few decks that really, really want a card like this. If you're playing Pauper or standard-based formats, 1v1 competitive formats, yeah, sure, this is probably really good. But in our format, it's just not that amazing. Yes, there are decks that can use it, sure, but there are also lots of other really good options for those Spellslinger decks, and again, for those sorts of decks, you want your cards to mean as much as possible, therefore you want to be able to reuse those spells, so you don't just want a one-off spell, you want a spell that has multiple uses at least, or if not, you want it to be super cheap. This is super cheap, so it can fall into that category. But again, there are lots of options, but that is for those decks, not this deck. So yeah. Dig through time, same sort of thing, mostly. Yeah, we can have a lot of things in our graves sometimes, which can make it a lot cheaper, and it is an instant, but nah. Just these one-off spells aren't really going to cut it for the most part, even if they're pretty good when you do cast them. You're just better off having consistency. Don't know how many times we're going to go through that. Probably going to go through it a lot here. Not going to talk about the lands, except to say, hey, not going to talk about the lands. But yeah, I cut a few lands. They're all bad lands that just aren't very good, and I wouldn't play in this deck at all. So yeah. Distant Melody, just one-off spell, not very good. Fact of Fiction, same sort of thing. Fairy Seer, it's an okay 1-mana 1/1 flyer that ETBs and scries to, but that's all it does. Like, yeah, we do have a lot of stuff to flicker our stuff, or bounce our stuff, or do this or do that. So we can reuse some ETBs, but we want things to have more of an effect throughout the game as well. So we want things to have an immediate impact if we can, but we also want things that have persistent effects or other effects that we can take advantage of. Frantic Search, just one-off card draw. The Watch, same sort of thing. Una, I don't know whether you want to go down the route of milling people. I was thinking that that's not what the deck is trying to do. Making the fairies is okay, and Demir is kind of about milling. So this was one of the few cards that I was kind of on the fence a little bit about, but I was just well, first off, you've got, it is a 5-mana, 6-mana 5/5 flyer that doesn't really do anything, so, and then you've got to sink a bunch of mana into its ability. If its ability to mill people was based on it entering the battlefield, attacking, whatever, that sort of stuff, if it was for free, yeah, then, okay, sure. But that you've got to pay all this mana, nah. Just didn't think it was quite worth it. Just one-off card draw. Not really that good. The Flickering guy, not terrible. As I said, we like to rebuy some of our things, but I was just hard up on it because it doesn't really do anything else. It does have Flash, which is okay, but yeah, not the greatest. The Pulse, the draw card's okay, but 3 mana's a bit expensive for it. So yeah. Snap's not terrible, but I'd honestly be happier to remove things of opponents better than this. Yeah, we can flicker back our own stuff, but I think we've got other better options than that. The duplication, you can come up against a tokens build, and in fact the enchantments deck is in a tokens build, so maybe if you're facing that deck or a token deck, it's okay, but against every other deck that exists that's not a token deck, this is a dead card that doesn't do anything. So wait. Oh, wait. I've misread it. But anyway, it's the same idea. Hang on. I'll just do that again. So, like, the idea of Demir is very much about, like, thievery and copying and stuff like that. So, that fits in with this, I guess, but, like, honestly, like, unless they have good fairies or good things that work for what we are doing, we don't care what our opponents have. Yes, sure, we can get a copy of something here and there, and it might be okay, like you just get Craterhoof or whatever, but yeah, like, it's not gonna really affect that much or whatever for the most part. Like, and again, it's a one off spell that, again, we can just do more for. The Encore, not terrible to recur stuff, but again, one off spells are just gonna be a lot more harder to make a slot. And over here, I've got the list of cards that I decided to cut. Yeah, it was about $13 worth of cards we cut. But the cards that we added, about 30 something dollars. So yeah. So we added some value here. The sprite buffs up our stuff. That's okay. We want to buff up our stuff. Pretty good for that. The slithers, when we cast things on opponent's turn, or i.e. flash, we get to draw a card, and each opponent loses life. So we get to draw cards, which is something we really want to do, and we get to damage our opponent, which is a win condition for us. Eventually, hopefully. The pranksters, I think this is kind of cool because when we cast a spell during an opponent's turn, we can return a target creature to its owner's hand. So we can return our own stuff, but we can also return opponent's stuff. So that gets pretty nasty pretty quick. Especially when you're playing a bunch of these cheap fairies that kind of do stuff and whatnot, and be flyers. So especially when they have only one or two flyers or one or two reach creatures, you're just like, okay, bounce your flyer or bounce your reach thing. Oh, cool, you can't block us anymore? Okay. So, and otherwise we can reuse TTBs with it. The scheme is, it is only at the beginning of our upkeep that we get anything out of it, but it's still kind of cool. It works a lot like Herald's Horn. At the beginning of our upkeep, we look at the top card of our library. If it shares a creature type with it, which i.e. is Fairy and Wizard, we can reveal it. If we do, each opponent loses 2 life. So, again, dealing that damage to our opponents is something nice. Yeah, we don't actually draw more cards from it, but still that little bit of extra damage is quite nice on a body that we do care about. Alright. The Caretaker, I like initiative. It's a pity there's not a lot of initiative that really works for what we're doing, but it's a really good mechanic that gives us really good card advantage and stuff, and it's a really cool mechanic to add into the game. Much like Monarch, it's a really cool mechanic. So yeah. But anyway, at the end step, if we have the initiative, which when we play it, we'll get it, so we'll definitely have it at least once, and it's not too hard to get it since we've got a bunch of flyers, so, and that's really good, so, but anyway, yeah, we get those fairies, so that's alright, the initiative is well worth it, and those fairies are quite nice. Plus, again, they'll help us get the initiative again and again. Resculpt, just generic removal. Infernal Grasp, I'm not really going to go through these and Baleful Mastery or just generic good removal that I decided to add in. Herald's Horn, because it wasn't in the deck. It is a tribal deck, and I didn't want to go too deep on the tribal theme, but I decided to compromise because a lot of the good flash stuff is fairies in the deck, and there's not a lot of really good flash stuff otherwise as well in the colours. So I thought, oh, that's all right. We'll double down on some of the things here and there, but yeah, whatever. Icon, same sort of thing. Very good for this tribe. The banner, we are heavily blue for the most part, so I thought that's okay for us to choose blue with it. Even if some of our black stuff doesn't get the buff, like we don't have a lot of black stuff. So yeah. Bident, we need more card draw, as I sort of said, and more consistent card draw. The banner, again, we are mostly fairies, not totally, but mostly. So just buffing up our stuff and drawing cards for casting them seems pretty good. The Feywild, getting extra fairies when we hit our opponents, as long as we've got our commander, seems pretty decent. So decided to jam that in there. Just helps us get a lot of more damage and card draw from things like Coastal Piracy or Kindred Discovery. So, those are good things for us as well. Really helps meet out our deck list and give us a good suite of stuff to do and advantages and that sort of thing. So yeah, that is the list. And obviously, as always, you guys can let me know what you thought. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. Hope you've enjoyed this one and hope you will join me for the next one.